So what's been going on in my mind as I've been listening to John is how these different perspectives are coming from a worldly point of view. When I was in that mindset, the mindset that I think of when I think about being in the bondage of self, being selfish and self-centered, that all came from the world. And so what has been real beneficial to me is to stop looking at everything from a worldly perspective and start looking at it from a spiritual perspective. So in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, starting at verse 16, it says, "So we have stopped evaluating others from a human point of view. At one time, we thought of Christ merely from a human point of view. How differently we know him now. This means that everyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone and a new life has begun." So the old is gone and the new has begun. Isn't that really what we want to happen? We want the old to leave and we want the new to come. So it says that up above that, it says that Christ died for us. And he died for us so that everyone who would receive it would no longer live for himself, but live for Christ. And so it tells us that we are ambassadors for God, up above where we read, and then down below where we read, it says we're ambassadors for Christ. So what God is doing is he's making his appeal through us to other people. So what kind of witness do we bear when we present our case? When I started listening to what I was saying, it made me quit talking, is what it did. It made me quit saying anything. And out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So whatever, if I start listening to what I'm saying throughout the day, then I'll know the condition of my heart. And so when I really started doing that, and I started listening to how many times I told almost all of the story. Anybody ever told almost all of the story? Because it sounded better than all the story. We call them one-sided stories sometimes. So we tell this, and the reason is because we want people to see our point of view. We want them to be on our side. When really, we should be on the side of the truth. You will know the truth, and the truth will do what? Set us free. How much have y'all done trying to be free? How many things have y'all participated in trying to be free? I've got a long list of things that I've participated in looking for freedom. When really the freedom that I was looking for was to be found by letting my mind be controlled by the Spirit. If you let your mind be controlled by the sinful nature, it leads to death. But if you let your mind be controlled by the Spirit, it leads to life and peace. There's no more peaceful place to be than for nobody to have anything they can find out about y'all. True or false? Isn't that a peaceful place to be? When you know that your slate is clean, and if it ain't clean, you're not worried about it because you've given it to God and he's giving it back to you, and you can talk about it and you're not all twisted about it because you've already dealt with it. So when everything gets in one of those two categories, we experience this rich and satisfying life that Jesus came to give us. But then he says that we need to do something else with it. We want to pass that on. So I can't be an effective witness for him if I'm bogged down with resentment, fear, worry, all kind of things that that shut us off from the sunlight of the Spirit, or as the 12 and 12 tells us on page 102, it tells us, or on page 103, it tells us that we get choked up with all these things. And when we're choked up with all these things, what it does is it causes us to look at us and what's going on with us, and we get out of that spiritual perspective. We get back to the worldly perspective. So I've gone back to the old. Same thing that happened to all those decisions. Some of those decisions were made at this church congregation. I remember them vividly, especially since I knew I was coming here for this. The Spirit's been reminding me of things. And one of those things is I ran into one of my buddies. I think he was making one of those decisions about the same time I was. We walk in the front of the church building over there for church about the same time. We shake hands. He leans over and he says, "You think this place is all right with both of us in here at the same time?" I said, "I hope so." I heard about him a few years later. He didn't make it out of that lifestyle. So see, it's serious. Dealing with the dark and the light is serious. And we can come in here and we sit through something like this and we shake our heads, and that's good, and we do witness with what's being said, but sometimes we don't really feel the weight of what's being said. How serious unforgiveness really is. In the big book on page 66, where we were before, it says this business of resentment is infinitely grave. So infinitely means I can't, no matter how serious I take it, I can't take it serious enough because I don't understand infinite. I can know that God's infinite, but see, it passes my understanding. Infinite passes my understanding. I'm limited in that. So no matter how serious I take it, I can take it just as serious as possible. But it's not serious enough. The effect. What kind of effect do we have on people when we run into them during the day? How's their mindset when they leave from talking to us? Is it better? Do we pick them up? Is that inner strength that the Spirit is giving us, is that what we talk about? Or do we tell them everything that happened we didn't think was supposed to happen? I was thinking about that earlier. I squeezed me out about 3 hours to go fishing last Saturday morning. I prayed for God to show me where the fish were. So I'm bebopping along and I'm having a little spiritual experience in my boat by myself, looking at the sunrise and all that stuff first thing in the morning. And the next thing I know, the front end of the boat stops and the back end keeps on going. So anybody that does much fishing knows that I just run up on a stump. And so I spin around forward a little while. I spin around backwards a little while. And then I quit. And I just sit there. But you know what I didn't think of? I didn't think of getting my fishing pole out and fishing right there where I run up on that stump. I asked him to show me where the fish were. I've been thinking about that all week. I was probably sitting on a bed of crappie right there. So how often do we pray and then act like we didn't pray? Y'all ever undermine your prayers by letting doubt start telling you that, oh yeah, that's possible, but y'all know the rest of it. Mark chapter 11, verse 25 tells me that when I'm praying, if I got something against somebody, I better go and settle that. I need to forgive that person so that my Father will forgive me. So unforgiveness hinders our prayers. You ever felt like your prayers weren't going anywhere? I didn't have any idea. No idea. Still, I just confessed that I still don't have the full weight of willingly practicing unforgiveness. By not being willing to take some simple instructions and apply them to my everyday life. I know it needs to be done, but how to do it. 13 years ago, I found out how. Since that time, I've been learning more about the how. I don't do it every day like I'm supposed to do it. I'm not sitting up here saying that. But the things that were exceptions in my life 13 years ago have become the rule. And the things that were the rule in my life 13 years ago have become the exception. And so today I spend, every now and then, I'll spend me a little time in that place where you can know everything I've done in a day's time. I'm thinking about today right now. I'm pretty sure that's true about today. I can't remember anything. Any part of my day that you couldn't have been with me. Now, every day's not like that. I wouldn't want you with me every day. But every now and then I get to spend a day where I don't care that you know everything I did during the day, every way I've responded to a situation. And sometimes even when I messed it up. Because I'm not so prideful that I won't admit anymore. See, I was glad that everybody had these 12 steps. They're a good deal. They're good. And I'm glad y'all got them because they seem to be working for you. But I don't need them. And so, the 7 years that I really did that, I went on 2 pretty hard runs of selfishness and self-centeredness while I was unwilling. And the price was really high. My first family, my first wife, my family no longer live in the same house as a result of those 2 runs in that 7-year period. So the price is pretty high. And the choice is ours. We can choose. We can choose to go this way, we choose to go that way. We have the tools, the Word. In a few minutes, we're going to have an invitation. So there's some promises in our book that I enjoy, and one of those promises is the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. And so that was a big promise for me. You know, I thinking from that worldly point of view, I was thinking that my best years was behind me at the age of 38. Now, some of y'all laugh at that just like I do now. I hear people say that now, and I'm thinking, man, you're just getting started. But that's what I was thinking. So, the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. So that's the promise. That's my favorite promise in the book. And the reason is because I've got a pretty good future ahead of me because of some choices that I've made.